We're two friends who aren't afraid to speak our minds, share our stories, and maybe even get a little messy along the way.
So grab a drink, get comfy, and let's get scrappy. We're going to tackle topics that matter, share our opinions, and have some fun doing it.
Real talk, no apologies, unleashing our inner scrappy. This is Two Scrappy Chicks. And we are back. This is October, and we are covering domestic violence. Last week, I had my friend Angel on, and Maria is back. So I'm going to hand the mic over to her, and she's going to share her story. Hello?
Hello. Oh, yeah, you kept cutting out.
Sorry. Go ahead.
As you mentioned, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and that is something that I have been going through since I was a child. And I'm sure there are people out there, you don't hear a lot about it. At least I really hadn't heard a lot about it in terms of my domestic violence started when I was a child from my older sibling who was 6 years older than me. So the physical and mental and emotional abuse began very, very young. And there's a common thread and a common theme with people who are experiencing domestic violence is that you're just not safe, especially not in your home where you should feel safe and you should be safe. Um, Family members did nothing. Friends obviously couldn't do anything. They were my age. And I think people just didn't get involved. They just thought it was sibling rivalry, which always, was surprising at the time because she was 6 years older than me. And then when we were older, she would tell people that I was the one that abused her, and I was like, let's think about this for a minute because when did I have the power to be the abuser? When I was born and she was 6, or when I was 6 and she was 12, or when I was 12 and she was 18. So there's just a very big dynamic involved in that with people who are abusers, that this mental emotional abuse is continuous. It never ends. So eventually I did sever that relationship with her because like I said, it was just ongoing. The physical part ended, but the emotional, verbal manipulation, gaslighting, that continued. And I finally had, I guess, the courage to say, yeah, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And unfortunately, because I did have that in my home, um, I was conditioned to think that that was normal or acceptable, I guess. And then friendships, and then later uh, partnerships, romantic or intimate partnerships were in relationships were abusive. And then when you have children, then your kids are involved in that too. And then that whole cycle is exposed to them and they're exposed to that. And it just goes on and on. And I just thought, well, after my second abusive relationship and marriage, I left that with my children and basically went into hiding, fled the state that we were living in at the time, and didn't tell anybody about my situation, not work, not friends, nobody. And because I wanted to, again, remain hidden, remain as safe as I could for me and my kids to keep us out of the legal system, which, is another thing, another layer to this is that they do tell people that all you need to do is leave and it's just all going to magically be better. And it wasn't. The legal system enables the abuser to then use the system to continue their control, abuse, manipulation. And I have yet to see a situation where that wasn't the case. And when I'm speaking right now, this is my experience. This is what I experienced. And even domestic violence, there's an organization, I'm not going to say the name yet, but it's an organization for women leaving abusive relationships. And it'll tell you how prolific this belief is when I was calling them, asking them for, protection for me and my children. I had a female attorney at this particular organization tell me, well, just because he abuses you doesn't mean he's abusing or going to abuse the children. And I was so stunned and so shocked. It's like they're in that environment, they are being abused. And hearing that, hearing their mother being beaten and the screaming and the yelling and the nuttiness that goes on with domestic violence, that whole cycle. And that female attorney basically told me, well, it's just you. Kids are fine. Oh, okay, got it. Got that message loud and clear. Um, I just made a decision after a time after all of this that's to no one situation, and I had just better remain single. That was probably the only way I was gonna keep myself and keep my kids safe. Um, and just hope to God that they didn't repeat the same pattern of being involved in abusive relationships. So I have been single for a very long time, and it's probably the best decision I ever made. Um, there have been times where I thought, well, maybe I should or could. And then I think about all the things that I went through, the years, and still going through a lot of healing and dealing with all that trauma. And my kids are all adults now. And don't think that they got away unscathed either, because they were in that environment and they did not all adopt the same beliefs that they needed to have a healthier relationship or that they deserved to have a healthier relationship. So there's that. And as adults, although they're my children, they are on their own. They have to make their own decisions. And I hope that they would always choose themselves and choose a healthy relationship for themselves. And in the meantime, that's what I've been doing. Just working on myself, getting through that, educating myself on these patterns and how they were learned and how to not repeat them. And for me, to not repeat them is to not be in a relationship, at least for now. And who knows, that could be forever. I don't know. I'm not inclined to start a relationship at this time. Um, I have,
Excuse
some
me.
really great and healthy friendships, right?
Jess.
Yes. And that too, I've had to set a lot of boundaries for myself because I even found jobs. I would get hired at these jobs and it was like, oh my gosh, like there were very abusive, verbally abusive, toxic environments. And I used to think to myself, there's got to be something better out there. There's just got to be something better. And and it didn't happen overnight, but I literally had to choose myself and to say that I deserved better. I deserved to be treated with a little bit of kindness and some decency. And when you set up those kind of expectations for yourself, you'd be surprised, especially with boundaries. And the trick with boundaries is you better be prepared to defend them because you will get kickback on those. You will get pushback. And you tell me, am I okay with defending my boundaries at this point?
You're asking me.
Yes, I'm asking you.
Yes. I didn't know if you were just speaking rhetorically or
I
actually
know.
asking me.
I know.
Yes. I mean, I had my gaps in between relationships. The first, when I was married, that was that he was abusive to me mentally and physically. And he went on to have six more children and four more baby mamas. Um, one of them, he didn't have the chance to be abusive to her. That child ended up in foster care. The next one, she she was probably the smartest one of us all because she did not allow him ever to take her for visitation, and really he was not in her life, and um So I've never asked her if he ever got violent with her physically or mentally, but I think she dodged a bullet out of the rest of us, and how she was able to keep her daughter away from him without him like taking her to court and fighting her is a miracle. Um he didn't tell his parents about the middle kid or the third kid, or the this kid number 4, until she wrote them a letter, and he was pissed off she did that, and I was just like, no, they need to know that their
Well,
son
and don't
is
you
not.
also, and I know we've discussed this, right?
Yeah,
Because I know we've discussed that the family also found you to be the problem. You were to blame and not him, not the abuser, but
no,
you.
yeah, because he lied to them and made me look like I was insane and crazy. And I mean, I think I told you this story. Ashley was just a baby, and he decided, I think I came home from work and he wasn't there, but his work van was. He decided to go out with his ex girlfriend and her friend, and they end up back at her house in Blue Island. And he's calling me at midnight saying, they're not going to drive me back. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. Well, you need to come pick me up. No, I don't. Walk home. And I hung up. And he claims he walked from Blue Island to Oak Lawn to his parents' house, and they showed up. It was early in the morning when they showed up with him, and they were pissed off at me. And
Yeah.
I'm like, really? And I'm like, I look at his mom, I go, tell me you would have woken up a sleeping baby to go pick up your husband who was at an ex-girlfriend's house. And why she couldn't like grasp the situation and understand. She actually liked that ex-girlfriend and wished he married her. And you know what? I wish he would have too.
I know. I know. Well, and there was something else that I wanted to something else I wanted to touch on is that the physical part of the abuse doesn't always start right away because you made a point that one of the baby mamas, she didn't get the abuse right away in terms of the physical part of it. And that's where I think a lot of women get stuck is that it's the emotional stuff that happens first. And they do make you feel like you're crazy. You're the problem. The gaslighting starts really early on. So when the
Hmm.
physical stuff happens, they basically tell you, well, it's your fault. You made me.
Right? Um, and there's other times he would pull stuff. And the weird part is I was always one step ahead of him, and he couldn't figure out why. And it was my intuition. Like I I would drive around the bars looking for him because he said he'd come home and he didn't. And then my daughter looked at me. She's like 8 or 9, and she's like, "Why are we doing this? He doesn't want to come home from dinner. Then fine, we shouldn't have to go look for him anymore." And I stopped with that. And but that day she did that. Um, the last time I went doing the searching, I went by one of the bars and I went in, and they said he was there and left with some lady named Ruth. I go, who's that? And they, oh, this lady's older. Like she was in her 50s. And at the time we were in our 20s. And I'm thinking, what kind of person would go to a bar and pick up somebody like that? And I was like, I bet you she lives in the trailer park. And I'm not trying to stereotype people here. I don't want anyone to get upset. But I was right, and I went to the trailer park, and there his vehicle was, and I went and banged down the door, and I said, um, they didn't answer because he heard it was me, and I was like, really? I go, you know what? I go, you can stay here and be with her. Don't bother coming home, and I left. And he had the nerve to come home and was laughing. And I go, it's not funny. And he goes, oh, she was scared. And I was just like, you can go live with her, you know. And I think this is when we lived in Braidwood. So there was a lot of cheating going on. And when you live in a small town and you go to the grocery store, people are looking at you going, "Tss, tss, tss." And I finally go up to him and I go, I know what he's doing.
Well, and that's part of the whole
So,
cycle of abuse too. It's infidelity.
yeah, I'm like, I know what he's doing. So you don't have to talk about me behind my back. And I'm
Yep.
like, I will be getting a divorce.
Yeah.
And
See, and that's part of that whole emotional abuse
yeah,
that people think it's abuse. Well, he's just a cheater. No, that's how they keep you in line to kind of say to you, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, period. And there's nothing you can do about it. And if you try to, it's just going to get nasty for you. And it was for me. I don't know, how bad it got for you, but I literally was literally afraid for my life.
yeah. Um, but like you and I mean, my parents stayed married for 50, can't remember, it's 53, 55 years. So I had I'll call it a fallacy because it is, because it's not, things are not the same. The, you know, oh, that's another thing. Um, my ex mother-in-law like shamed me for that I should be like a 50s housewives and stay home and watch the kids and cook and clean and a 7-course meal every night. I don't think so. I was just like, what are you what are you smoking, lady? That does not exist. um but we're Generation X and we were brought up, you get married, you have kids, and more than likely the mom stays home and raises the kids and does all that, and you have the house and the pets and the white picket fence, you know, and after a while I was just like, what the heck is this? I didn't sign up for this. This is not what I signed up for. And
Right.
yeah. And I was just like, okay. So when I got a divorce and I was going to community college, I had a speech class, and one of my, um, I don't know if I still have the speech, I'll have to look, but one of my, excuse me, one of my speeches was about that exactly. That's how I was raised and made to believe that this is how, life works. And I had most of my peers were just out of like high school, right? And I'm like, so my advice to you guys is carefully select who you're going to spend the rest of your life with. Don't be in a hurry, and just because your friends are all getting married and having kids doesn't mean you need to. You don't need to keep up with them. And I'm like, and I said to the girls especially, establish yourself in a career, because it's really come to it where you need to be self-supporting.
Well, I think we get that now. And as you had said, when we are younger, we just automatically thought, well, now I'm this age and this is, when we're dating and we're supposed to be, finding our life partner and getting married. And yeah, I think there was kind of a pressure that we felt or a rush to be married and not even worrying about, am I compatible? Is this the right pick for me? Is this the person that I want to have children with? Is this the man that I want to call my husband? Is this the man that I want to be the father of my children? And as I look back, Ginger, the answers to all of that is no. That I went into these relationships just feeling like I really had no other.
No other choice, right? I know what you mean.
Well, and you hear that from the that man too that you're with, that constant manipulation. Like, and I remember, my first marriage, I was 18, just out of high school, and the emotional abuse with him started immediately, the manipulation immediately, and the physical stuff started right around the time we got married. I want to say
Yeah.
probably just right after. And I was so stunned. I was so shocked. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what is happening? Like, I cannot, like, when it first happens to you cannot believe it's happening. And the
No.
rage and the anger, they blame you. And here's the thing. This was also the other thing too. They blame you for what they're doing. You talked about the infidelity, that's part of the abuse.
Yes.
Um, he always accused me of seeing other people because his quote unquote friends were telling him that. And
Yeah.
yet I was home all day with a newborn baby. And he was the one that would go out, right, Ginger? Go out
Mhm.
and get drunk
Yep.
and fool around and
Yep.
then not come home with formula, not come home with the diapers because he had the car. We only had one car. And come home at, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning and be kicking in the door and screaming and yelling and blaring the music. And then my baby, we were not, and it's the weirdest thing, we were not allowed to sleep. If he found me in bed when he came home, he would yank me out of bed. And then, of course, the baby would be up and he'd have the music blaring and he'd be screaming and yelling and tossing furniture. And the baby would be laying next to me on the couch. And that's how she would have to sleep because I was not allowed to be in bed. I was not allowed to. It was the most bizarre thing. I would have to wait for him to pass out. And that sometimes didn't happen for 2, 3 hours. So I would have to sit there on the couch with my baby curled up next to me on the couch until he passed out. It was the most horrible thing. And then when I tried to, barricade the door and call the police and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
it just, police were no help. They really couldn't
Right.
have helped. It's like, do you want to press charges? Yeah, I do. Oh, they never did, though. And I don't understand why that, again, as I was so young, I didn't know what my rights were. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what my options were. So that was just the first one. Second one was way worse. And that's why I just say to myself, it's better that I just heal and work on me and not be involved in relationships for me because I think my abuse, because it started so young and was so severe for so long, some maybe I'm just not relationship material anymore in terms of that way, and I'm okay with that. And I think that may bother people sometimes when I say that I'm okay with it. Like, I am. I have my peace and I have my space and I can do what I want to do when I want to do it. I make my own money. I'm self-sufficient. And I feel like for the first time in my life, I am standing in my truth, standing in my strength. And I'm so happy for the friendships and relationships that I have now because I worked so hard to have healthier relationships and to be able to talk to people like my friend, like you, and be able to have these really, they call them radically honest relationships, radically honest discussions. We can have really hard, sensitive conversations and still be really supportive of each other, even if we may not be able to relate 100%. We can at least sympathize and empathize with the situation that you were in. So many things that we've had to go through are similar, but not the same because not all abusive relationships are the same. And I do want to point out men are abused too. I don't want anybody to think, oh, this is just a woman's problem. It definitely isn't because my abuser from my sister abused her boyfriends. I used to hear about it. And
Oh.
when she would go fly off into her rages at the
Wow.
house, she would attack our father. And he was 6'2". He was not a little guy. And he used to tell my mom, she fights like a man. And she would wear him out. It was bad. She was constantly just flying off into violent rages. There was one day I came home. I'd been out with my friends. When it gets dark, right, Ginger? Street lights come on. You got to go home. And I had come home, and it looked like a bomb went off in our house. We had a huge china hutch in the dining room, and every single plate, dish, glass, cup, serving platter was shattered into a million pieces from one end of the dining room all the way across into the living room. It was glass everywhere because she flew into a rage and just started destroying things. Now imagine that as you're a child 6 years younger in that household And those are the kind of rages where she would attack me and beat me. And again, nobody did anything. Doesn't that just blow your mind?
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. Um,
Blows my mind.
I did fight with my sisters. Only one of them did we get physical, and my mom had to break it up. But it wasn't
Well,
a,
at least your mom did that much. My mom didn't ever intervene and
yeah.
try to stop it.
And that's probably like the first and the only time that that happened. I kind of feel like they were resentful because they got stuck watching me when my mom and dad would go out because they would make me do things, and if I didn't, they said, "Well, we're going to tell mom that you were bad." So, yeah, I had to do things like get them something to drink or eat and this and that, you know. And then my sister was on um pom pom and orchestras and that, and I don't know if they still do this, but when you make the team, groups of cars pull up and pick up the people that make the team, and you keep going to the next houses till you have everyone. And my sister had to bring me with, and they were at a light and they all got out. And I was like, what the heck? So I got out. I didn't know what they were doing. And it was the Chinese fire drill. And I was just like, okay. It was weird. But yeah, I feel like I was kind of like a burden to them that they had to, watch me because they were older and I was the youngest.
So I wanted to ask you, because I don't know if we ever really talked about this in depth, because there is that aspect of the violence doesn't start right away. How far into your relationship with your first marriage do you think that the physical part started?
Um, the cheating right away. And when your mom tells you someone's no good, listen to her and run. Like we said in high school, run for Hyman's sake. And so let's see.
Yeah, we just should have.
Um,
And intuition tells us too, but we never listened to that either.
Definitely not when I was pregnant. But I want to say it probably started after we got married because it was got a house, then Ashley was born, and then got married. And I was 22, he was 23, a very immature 23 he was, and I was a very mature 22. And I think that was all too much for him. And the responsibilities. And so yeah, that's when it started, more of the cheating, and then that. And then, like you had mentioned before, his parents felt he was like an angel and he could do no wrong. And I was just like, what? I was just like blown away. Like, he had to go to them for money because back then, we didn't have the debit cards. We had an ATM card, and we wrote checks. And I had, made out all the bills. And he goes to the ATM and he sees the balance, but doesn't realize that there's checks that haven't cleared for bills. So then um he goes to an ATM and gets out a couple $100 and goes to like one of those massage parlors to get a happy ending. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Are you kidding? I had, I have bills I paid. So then he had to go to his parents to borrow money. And they're like, why? And then he had them convinced I had a shopping problem. And they're like, well, you need to take away the checkbook and an ATM card from her. And I was just like, are you kidding me? I mean, I told them plenty of times I do not have a shopping problem. And I told them the truth. And of course, they ask him, is that true? And he lies. And I was just like, they're never. I like gave up. I'm like, they're never gonna see him for who he really is. And
No.
I had, said to him, you know what? One day you're gonna end up alone and not have anybody, and you will only person to blame is yourself. And that pretty much is where he stands now because
And
I
you
don't
also
know.
talked about the job thing too, that he couldn't keep a job. So you
No,
were
he lost
the
the
one
job.
that had to work. You were the one that had to support because that's what happened to me. Mine. Go ahead.
Um, when we moved in to our first house, after the first year, he lost his job. It was a union job, HVAC, and he lost it because he was caught at a motel. He went there with a service van. And then he went non-union for a while and it wasn't enough. So yeah, I had to go back to work and he really put pressure on me working. And I said, I'll stop working when number two comes. Well, then number two came and I had stopped working. Um, I got chicken pox when number two was in my belly. Weird. And so then I stopped working and then I pretty much raised them. And he was still doing his shenanigans. And let me think here. Um, after I think after a while I was like, I want to try to work at night because I knew plenty of people where the husband worked during the day and the mom would go work at night. So I tried that and um he had not picking up the kids and I was working like a part-time job at Target and I get a call from the sitter that, hey, your kids are still here. I was like, really? Okay. So I had to leave and go get them and I go home and he's there. I go, why didn't you get the kids? Oh, it's not my responsibility to pick them up. And it's like, all right, you want me to work. So I go to work at night. So we're not working to pay a sitter. And all you have to do is pick them up, take them home, feed them dinner, and then I'm home in a few hours. And, he didn't want that responsibility. Just like
Right. Too
after
much
we had
responsibility.
yeah, after a while, the kids didn't see him. Like it's like he gave up his visitation, and he's like, "Oh, they don't want to see me. They don't have fun here." But what it was is there was plenty of times he would say, "I'm coming. You better be ready." And they wait, and then he wouldn't show up, and I go, "Guess he's not coming." And then he called the next day and do his, "I'm sick," and he still does that. I've heard from the last baby mama, he's still doing that. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. So when he stopped taking them, I was like, good, because now they
Right.
don't have
That's
to
it's a
be
blessing.
around. Yeah, they
But
don't
as
have to.
far as like the job thing, that's also part of the cycle of abuse. They keep you
Hmm.
poverty stricken because he just flat out refused to work. I mean, he basically told me he was too good to work, so I had to
Yeah,
work and support everybody. I had to
yeah,
go to work, and he sat home and kept the couch warm, and would
right.
talk about starting his business or whatever. And he was actually doing criminal activities. Yeah, surprise, surprise.
Yeah,
Uh, Writing all kinds of bad checks and everything. And he finally ended up getting arrested and then went on the run. And that's a whole other situation. But I could not get away from him fast enough. And then when I did get away and I came back to Illinois, or
hmm.
sorry, came back to Northern Illinois, my mother and his grandfather basically told me, well, you have to take him back. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And shortly after that is when he broke my hand. Because of course, he was a violent. They can cheat, Ginger. They can flit around, but if they so much as suspect that you are, which I wasn't, I was working, and then I was home at night with
Hmm.
my children. Like, what do
Yeah,
you think? But see, that doesn't matter because it's not even about that. It's just
Yeah.
about them wanting to keep you, I guess, in that fear state all the time. But yeah,
Yeah.
poverty was definitely part of it. And I thought, and when I leave, like you said, we did it on our own. I did it on my own with four kids,
Yeah.
and you did it on your own with two,
Yes.
and we much better.
And and this is just the beginning of my story, so there's more to come. One thing Angel and I talked about is the fight or flight mode. I still have that. I don't think I will ever get rid of that. What about you?
Um, well, I think you're gonna have that no matter what. I just think how you react and how you now manage your relationships is what's going to make the difference. That's what makes the difference for me, is that I'm very selective about with whom I have a friendship relationship with. And if someone starts to get all funky and starts to get, abusive, manipulative, or controlling, or starts, I'm out. We're done. And I don't look back. And people are going to say, well, that's a little harsh. Yeah, gotta be harsh. Gotta defend those boundaries because,
Right?
especially when you've had this kind of experience from childhood, that's a tough thing to manage and to deal with. And I don't think you ever get over it if that's what you're saying, like you're never going to get over it. And I think it's insulting people say, well, get over it. You're not going to get over it. You can
No.
do what you can, do the work to heal and get yourself in a better spot. I don't know if anyone's ever going to just get over something like that.
Well, it's like when you're grieving when someone dies, and they say, "Oh, you need to get over it." No, you don't.
Yeah.
You just have to learn to live with it and move forward, but you don't get over
Yes. No, you don't. Right.
it.
You manage it. Well, like Ginger said, we have a
A lot more.
lot more to talk about and share. And yeah, a lot more. And we want, women and men to know that you can break the cycle, but it has to be you. And it's not, and unfortunately, I wish I could tell you it was easy. It wasn't. But
Nope.
there are ways to do it, and there is help and support out there. You're just going to have to see who will help you
Right.
and help out there. And I want to tell that story too of how I actually finally got away from my abuser. The second
Yes.
one, first one wasn't that hard. Second one, a whole different situation. But we've got just like a minute or two left. So did you want to close it up?
Yes. Yes. So this is our second episode on domestic violence, and there is more to come. And please subscribe and maybe leave us a review and questions. Ask Murray. That would be wonderful.
Take care, everybody, and we hope to see you back here.
Thanks for tuning in, chicks. Join us next time for more real talk and scrappy vibes. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast for more fun content. We are at Two Scrappy Chicks on Instagram.